Helen, welcome to Talks with SEO, the series on the Democratizing SEO podcast. How are you doing today?
Yeah, thank you for having me. I'm doing really well. Really well. It's nice and warm where I am at the moment, which makes a bit of a change for the UK.
Yeah, it's very hot in London. Are you outside of London?
Yeah, just outside.
Outside.
I'm in Kent.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, right. Okay. Yeah. In London, it's boiling hot. It's like 20 something. It's in the mid 20s, I believe. Which is a good thing. Just need to open the windows.
But then all the flies
I've
come
come
in. It's
across
the
a
constant
number of
battle,
your
isn't it?
posts. Yeah, we don't tend to have the sort of like the nets that Americans have to keep flies and wasps out. So you just have to bear with it. Whenever I'm cooking, they just make their way inside, and it's a battle I have with them once a week whenever I'm cooking. But thank you for your time. I've come across a number of your posts online, and I thought you'd be a very interesting person to speak with, around the topic of SEO education. So I'm titling this episode "Why SEO Education is for Stakeholders is Essential, is a Must." As I like to do with all my SEO guests, I like to ask them how they ventured into becoming an SEO professional. So with that said, how did you become an SEO professional?
Well, that's a good question. As most SEOs, I think, kind of ended up in SEO by accident, really. I started off as a more generalist marketer, so I was working both online and offline with marketing for a brand, and was introduced to this idea of making your website more visible, looking at ways that you can improve your website's performance, and I got hooked. So I went from being more of a generalist marketer to specializing in digital marketing, and then eventually into SEO. So I've worked both agency side and brand side, did a little bit of a dabble in freelance for a bit. But yes, really, it was just, there's something about SEO that is so, it's that mixture of kind of really analytical, but also really creative, which I absolutely love. So yeah,
Yeah.
I've been hooked ever since I discovered it was a thing.
Awesome. Would you say you have a particular pillar that you prefer: on page, content, off page, technical?
Technical, very much technical. I kind of see that as a bit of a bedrock in terms of SEO. Like your technical has to be on point, otherwise you are just going to keep encountering problems. You can't see it's almost kind of, it sometimes is overlooked because it's not the thing that necessarily gives you that really big burst of growth, like a digital PR campaign might, for example, or a really good piece of content. But if your tech SEO isn't on point, then you're really going to struggle because you're just kind of incurring more and more debt when it comes to the bots. So yeah, technical's kind of my favorite.
Yeah, it's the foundation of SEO, isn't it? Um, you mentioned agency sides, client side experience. Do you have a preference out of the two?
I'm very much client side at the moment. I love being in a brand. I like that you have this opportunity to affect change across like the whole piece. Like with agency, you
Hmm.
have a different set of struggles. So with agency side, you're very much almost beholden to who your client contact is. So you can make all these amazing suggestions and recommendations, and you can come up with an amazing SEO strategy, but you're really funneling a lot of what you're doing through one person. So if they don't get it, or they don't agree with it, or they leave, then you're kind of a bit hampered.
Yeah.
So I very much like that with brand, you can see things happen. I'm not going to say quicker because, even when you're within a company, you're still beholden to development cycles and sprints and all that kind of stuff. So things don't always happen quickly, but
Mhm.
you can see impact, I would say, a lot clearer than when you're agency side and you're that step removed from everything that's going on.
Yeah, I totally agree. And you can see where the issues occur, as in where they stem from in the first place. And a lot of it comes down to lack of awareness or education on SEO for non-SEOs. SEOs, we tend not to make problems on the site. At least we shouldn't, right? But non-SEOs, let's say a developer, for example, they may inadvertently do something on the site or for the site which hurts SEO performance. And this is where the whole idea of education is essential for non-SEOs. When doing SEO client side, as you are, how important is it for stakeholders to have an awareness of SEO?
I think it's fundamental. It's absolutely critical. You have to get that level of buy-in throughout the company. It's not even just your, say, engineering department or just your content writers. I think that as SEOs, we impact and are impacted by so many different facets of a company. Anyone who touches the website or anyone who has an impact on brand can impact SEO. So I think there has to be this across the board education, really, that everyone needs to know what SEO is and what it isn't, and how their role can impact it. So, yeah, I mean, I think if we take a step back and really consider who SEO stakeholders are, it's going to be more people than we would initially probably write down on the list. And that means that education has to be across the board.
Okay, let me play devil's advocate. Let's say I'm a product manager. How does SEO or knowing about SEO benefit me?
I think there's 2 points, really. Personally, for a product manager, I think the more upskilling and training and understanding of the channels that you are impacting you can have, the better for your career, essentially, because you're going to be much better equipped to go into conversations with stakeholders at other companies or, in interviews and that kind of thing, and actually understand the impact that SEO can have on your role and vice versa. So just on a very personal level, I think a product manager can really benefit from that kind of level of education in SEO. But for more of a corporate perspective, you need to know what the work that you're doing is going to have an impact on. So if you understand more about what SEO is, you can kind of stop problems later down the line. So product managers, my experience with product managers is they're always busy. They are constantly busy because they're having to juggle so many different things. And the last thing they want is to be releasing something, finding out later on that actually it had an SEO impact. It's damaged performance, it's damaged rankings, and then they're having to either organise to get it fixed or roll it back. It's just more problems. So the earlier on they can spot these kind of issues and get them rectified, probably the better for their energy levels and general well-being. So I think for them, it's really important to understand where SEO could be tripped up. So that education is really important, because my kind of understanding of a lot of people who aren't within SEO but kind of have some kind of impact on it or are impacted by it is they might have quite a narrow understanding of what SEO is. So especially for people like product managers, they really need to understand how vast and wide SEO is and all of the different things that can impact it. And I'd personally much rather have a product manager ask me, is this a problem for SEO? And it absolutely not be, than for them to think, oh, this hasn't got anything to do with SEO, and go ahead and do something that could cause problems. So yeah, product managers, they are closest allies, I think, when it comes to SEO.
I find that a lot of businesses, they treat SEO as a reactive channel, and you can argue that by default it is. Historically, it's been very a reactive channel. But you mentioned something quite interesting there. You mentioned how by understanding SEO, you can foresee an issue and prevent it from happening in the first place, which is my favorite way of optimizing websites. It's optimizing a site before, I don't know, product listings are put on the site, right? And that has to do with people. And I always look at SEO almost as 2 levels. Level 1 is what you do on or for the site. And level 2 is working with all the people who can impact a website. What is it like from a client side point of view, trying to, if you like, impact or influence business leaders or stakeholders to take more of a preventative approach to their SEO?
Yeah, it's a very good point. It's a really good question. I would say talk money at them, because that tends to be the best way to help those kind of senior leaders understand the enormity of what could go wrong, is when you talk money at them. Or so you can, give them examples of where things have happened in the past that haven't been good. I always say that my favorite way to scare a senior stakeholder is to show them a visibility graph following a migration, because that kind of puts things into perspective.
Yeah.
Even if a migration's gone really well, you're still likely to see some kind of visibility drop over a small period of time, hopefully, but it's something that really puts it into perspective. And then you can bring that back to money. So actually that visibility drop, what did that mean in terms of traffic? Well, it meant this. What does that mean in terms of conversions? Well, it meant this. And what does that mean in terms of revenue? It meant this. And by bringing that back to the finances and the risk with the finances of not dealing with SEO proactively can often help to really solidify that in the mind of your senior leaders and your senior stakeholders that they need to think proactively about SEO. It's a lot harder, I always say, to fix an SEO mistake than it is to prevent an SEO mistake. So if you've de-indexed a website, for example, it's going to take a bit of time for the search engines to understand that you're trying to re-index it and get it back into the index and all of that kind of thing. If you could have simply prevented it with a little bit of education about how no index tags works, for example, then that's got to be so much better than spotting an issue once it's happened and trying to fix it afterwards. So that tends to be what I talk in, is money or resources. So again, if you're looking at trying to get your company to think more proactively about SEO and less reactively, then looking at, well, actually, if we can plan in these things, we know that we're going to require this development resource, we're going to require this content resource, we're going to require this product manager's time. It's a lot easier for people to understand the resource requirements and whether that's going to need additional resources or, have to hire more people in, etc., then you all of a sudden saying something's gone terribly wrong with our SEO. We're going to have to fix it. I need some developers. I need someone to get on this right now. And it's a lot more unstructured and a lot more panic inducing. And that's going to cause more problems for your kind of finances and resourcing schedule than planning all these things in advance. So really, as far as I'm concerned, it makes absolutely no sense to treat SEO reactively. It's got to be a proactive, considered thing if you want it to be successful.
Mm. Why do you reckon it's been, or even till this day, still treated as a reactive channel?
Yeah, I do. I wonder if it's just because we are somewhat beholden to the whims of the search engines. We are somewhat at their mercy. So if there's an algorithm change and your website sees a big drop in visibility, then you don't necessarily know that's going to happen until it's happened. So then it's kind of, oh, everyone get on this. We need to reverse what's happened. We need to fix whatever the quality issue is or whatever's gone wrong here. So a lot of the times we don't see the fruit of our labor until after a significant period of time. So then when you're looking to iterate or improve things, it has to be after a little bit of time and the search engine's coming to understand what's going on with your website. So there is a reactive element to it. And a lot of the time when you are raising concerns or issues or even requests with your senior stakeholders, it's probably because something's gone wrong. If you're having to get it to the senior stakeholders' eyes, then you're obviously needing some budget or something quite quickly. That will probably, in some senses, cement in their mind that SEO is very much we'll try a thing, we'll hope it works. If it doesn't, then we panic and we'll throw some budget at it and see if we can get it fixed, which isn't the right way to consider it at all. But because it's less predictable than some other marketing channels, and because of that, I think it's seen more as a reactive channel than it is a proactive one.
Yeah, I agree, and I would add to that I'm very interested in the whole psychological sort of like dynamics between SEOs and all departments that are non-SEOs, and I find that SEO, even within digital marketing, is treated as, if you like, the child of digital marketing. It's not the newest channel. Social media is newer than SEO, but because SEO is seen as a black magic mystical thing, people almost purposefully stay away from it. They don't want to embrace it, and they see SEO issues as SEO problems, literally calling it SEO issues problems. They don't necessarily see it as, actually, this is something that affects the entire business. And I think because of that mindset internally, there is this aspect where business leaders look at external factors first before they consider SEO. SEO is almost like the last thing they want to think about. I should actually preference this by saying some business leaders. There are some business leaders that are very switched on with SEO, right? But some, they look at external factors first and wait for external factors to happen. But that's just a portion of what affects SEO. External factors are Google algorithm updates or releases, and what competitors do. So things that affects one's industry. A big portion, I would say, is what one does internally.
Mm-hmm.
And changing the way SEO is regarded internally is, to me, I would say that's what differentiates those who succeed consistently with SEO and those who do not. What is your take on that?
Yeah, I think in your first 90 days, potentially in a new job or a new company, you've got to make an impact. And that tends to be showing people what SEO is. So something I like to do when I join a company is give a really broad overview of what SEO encompasses. And I'll choose to talk about things like YouTube SEO and how some aspects of Amazon could be considered SEO because you're having to optimize listings and things like that. And that there's podcast SEO, and you can talk about how there's a technical element to it and a content element to it and an off-site element to it. And what on earth is edge SEO that we're all talking about at the moment? They talk about how broad a subject SEO is, because it starts to really open your company's eyes to what could potentially be impacting the success of the website and what might be affecting it negatively. So my general kind of conclusion throughout my career is that most people who aren't directly involved in SEO kind of have this loose concept of SEO being something to do with meta and keywords. They're not really sure how the keywords are involved, but there's words, and we apparently as SEOs really like them. Or they might have this understanding of it's all links and it's about authority, and that's what we've got to aim towards. And that's kind of it. They've got these, that's what SEO is apparently. So when you start opening their eyes to the fact that it's not just that yes, those are important parts of it, but there's so much more, then you'll start to bring people on side, because they themselves get curious, and they're like, well, because they use the search engines every day. They're constantly searching for stuff on Google and Bing. They're always looking for stuff, and they kind of, I've found that people get really curious about why am I choosing this result instead of another one? And if you can pique their curiosity, then you're onto a winner, because people then want to learn more. And when you say that, actually, you know what, SEOs tend to be quite involved in things like YouTube, and they'll think, oh, I've got a YouTube channel, I wish to learn more. And you're kind of really involving them in the excitement and the breadth of what SEO is. And I've completely forgotten what your question was, because I got really excited about this. So hopefully I answered it.
No, that's fine. That leads me to another question I just thought of. What is SEO first thinking?
SEO first thinking for me, and it's something I'm really, really passionate about in a company, is helping people to understand that SEO is going to impact their role in some way. So obviously, if it's kind of a customer service role, then the impact is going to be a lot less, but they can still impact SEO. If it's a brand manager, they absolutely can impact SEO. And it's really introducing people to the fact that they have an important part to play in the success of SEO. And as such, they need to be thinking about SEO in those kind of decisions that they're making. So the more that you can educate people as to the breadth and the range of things involved in SEO, the more that you can help them have this SEO first thinking of, I'm about to make this decision about expanding internationally. What does that mean for SEO? How can SEO help? What do I need to talk to my SEO about in regards to this decision? And it's helping people to realize that SEO needs to be a part of the conversation right at the beginning of those kind of conversations, and not once everything's already been decided, because SEO has the ability to really open your eyes to the potential for success. So what are the opportunities in this new region that you're looking to expand into? What's the competition like? What are the trends in the moment? And it's helping people to understand that SEO needs to be considered really near the beginning of any major decisions and not at the end.
Okay, let me play devil's advocate again and put my business leader hat on. and say, I've hired two SEOs, right? Why are they spreading SEO problems outside of the SEO team? Isn't it their job to solve SEO problems?
Yeah. Why are they causing more tickets for our developers? Why are they asking for more pages to be created? Why are they causing more problems? Yes, it is something
Yeah.
that people, those kind of senior leaders who perhaps aren't really used to working with SEOs or don't quite understand what SEO is, might just see us initially as causing more problems than fixing them. So that again is where that education is really important, because you need to be able to show them that down the line, yes, okay, I might be putting more tickets into the developers queue at the moment, but it's going to save us this hassle and this problem down the line. And also I can predict that there's going to be this increase in traffic, and we can extrapolate that there'll be this increase in revenue. So again, bringing it back to, well, why are you doing this? What do you expect the outcome to be? And what's the money? Because at the end of the day, that really is a big motivator for a lot of the senior leaders when they're signing off on things.
So, content team, the web development team, PR, product managers, all of these different teams, understand or are taught SEO, appropriately taught SEO. So how it affects their area. Doesn't this then mean SEOs are no longer needed?
No, because we are usually teaching them just a piece of the jigsaw, right? You're teaching your UX designers how removing navigation might affect SEO, or adding additional links might affect SEO, or removing copy from a page could affect SEO. You're not teaching them how to internationalize a website. So they are getting this little piece over here. And then your product managers, you're probably showing them more of the jigsaw pieces, but they're still not going to be able to implement an XML sitemap necessarily. And you're giving these teams all of these little tools essentially to be able to do their jobs better and help you get to your end result with SEO, but you're not giving them the big picture in enough detail that they could run that strategy, because you still need someone who's got the strategy in their head, and that is your SEO. That's the kind of our biggest impact, is having the SEO strategy, looking forward to what we could achieve, understanding where we've gone wrong in the past. And when you're just teaching other members of your team or your company little bits about SEO, you're not necessarily helping them to be able to visualize a strategy. And even if you are going into that level of depth, which is great, if you have the time, you can train people really in the fundamentals of SEO. It's not their full-time job. It's not what they are necessarily that passionate about, and it's not their remit. Product managers are too busy. They haven't got time to devise an SEO strategy as well. Your engineers, right, they're heads down, working on product improvements. They haven't got time to come up with a comprehensive SEO strategy that encompasses content and UX and all this kind of stuff. So you do need those strategic leaders, and that's what SEO does. It brings together all these skill sets and all of these other teams, and it helps coordinate them towards a successful SEO outcome.
It would seem that optimizing a website has very little to do with optimizing it for search engines. It seems a lot deeper than keywords, rankings, and links. For a business leader who's thinking SEO first thinking or SEO first mindset, sounds good. This is something I want to implement in my organization. What would you say they should be doing to support this thinking across their business?
They need to be bringing SEOs into the conversation. So I'm the kind of person who will insert herself into a conversation. So that's part of what I do when I join a new company, is I bother a lot of people. I'll join meetings that I have no business being and that kind of thing, so that I can kind of introduce SEO into processes that already exist. And that's kind of what you need as an SEO champion for your senior leaders to be helping you to facilitating that. So there's a weekly UX team meeting that happens every Thursday morning. Why don't you pop into one a month as an SEO? Build those relationships with your UX team, understand more about what they're working on, and kind of begin to say, oh, actually, that could be a problem for SEO, or I've got this idea. And as a CEO or someone senior in the business, that's kind of what you want to help your SEO to achieve. Get them into those right meeting rooms, get them into those right conversations. And as the CEO, you probably have a really good understanding of what's going on in your company, I'd hope, and therefore what kind of conversations that an SEO might be interested in. So that's probably the biggest thing you can do to be an advocate for SEO, is help introduce them, get them into those kind of meetings that people might be a little bit hesitant about the SEO turning up to, help them to get into those conversations.
Mm. See, SEO is so wide and vast, right? It's, as you mentioned earlier, creative and also analytical. It attracts people who have, I would say, a nice balance of these two areas of their mind. What is it that personally inspires you? Because you sound like you have a lot of passion for this industry, and I'm so happy you agreed to come on the podcast, because everything you're saying is music to my ears, and I'm sure the audience is going to love what you're saying as well. What is it that personally inspires you to keep SEO in?
For me, it's because it's so broad. It's such a vast subject, a vast discipline, that after 15 years of being an SEO or SEO adjacent in marketing, don't know SEO. I still consider myself to be learning every single day. And I think most people who've been in SEO for a while would agree that you can't be an expert across the board, but I am a perfectionist, so I want to be an expert across the board. And I think that's what keeps me interested. I want to learn more about tech SEO. I want to learn more about how to create a really good digital PR campaign. I want to keep learning, but I also want to bring others along in that journey. I want other people to learn. I want them to understand how vast SEO is. And really, that in my opinion, and it's not a very humble opinion, I think SEO really has one of the biggest impacts on a website's success out of all of the marketing disciplines and out of all of the things that you can do on a website, because we touch so many different other teams, and we help so many different other teams, because improving a website's performance from what would traditionally be considered an SEO perspective is going to have an impact on usability. It's going to have an impact on things like load speed or simplifying the tech stack. It's going to have an impact across the board. And that's kind of, I really feel like we're not in a place yet where that is fully understood, that when someone hires an SEO, they think they are going to be in everybody's business. They are going to be bothering my engineers. They're going to be bothering my UX team. They're going to be bothering my content writers. I don't think that's fully understood yet. And that's kind of what that's a bit of a personal mission for me, is to help everyone to understand actually what are the opportunities with SEO, and how it really is a team effort. It's a team effort. You can't be a successful SEO in isolation.
Yeah, totally agree. I like to say SEO is the core of digital marketing. And as long as you have a website, you need SEO. There's no two ways about it. If you have a property that you own, SEO is fundamental. And it's so, as you mentioned, vast. It's a marketing channel. It's also a development channel. There's so many areas that SEO touches. You mentioned you like to, bring people on that journey. I presume non-SEOs, on that journey. I find that sometimes non-SEOs have a fear of SEO, or it's almost like the fear of a fear of the unknown, where they push back on SEO because it's so black magic, mystical thing. I don't care about SEO. I don't want to care about SEO. So, let me stay away from them, and I'm going to keep them away from my department, my workflow, my processes. How do you go about combating this? Because later on the relationship gets better, but in that very beginning stage, how do you handle this almost combative stance with non-SEOs?
Yeah, you can encounter gatekeeping, very much so. Don't you be doing anything to my processes. We've developed and fine-tuned these processes over the last 3 years. Don't you dare try and introduce SEO into those now. Yeah, it's a real concern. I think a lot of it is relationship building, honestly. It's talking to those people who have the final say over whether engineers are taught SEO or not, or whether they're allowed to introduce SEO into processes, and really helping to get to the bottom of what their concerns are, for a start, because it might be that they've had some bad experiences with SEO in the past. It might have been they worked with a team that were not very collaborative and actually caused a lot of problems for their engineering department in past jobs. And trying to really understand what they think SEO is and what their concerns around it are, and try to allay those fears. So actually, is it that they're worried introducing SEO into the process is going to bottleneck things and their developers are already overstretched and too busy, they can't introduce yet more complexity? Or is it that they are worried that actually it's just not going to help their performance and it's not going to impact those KPIs that they care about? And once you get an understanding of what it is that those senior stakeholders, gatekeepers are concerned about, you can start to address those concerns and hopefully get to a point where they see that SEO is an ally and we collaborate and we want to help them meet their goals because their goals tend to be similar to our goals. And you can kind of start working with them then. But I think it's like a lot of relationships, it's coming from a place of listening. And trying to understand what the person is concerned about rather than going straight in with SEO is the future, because no one likes to hear that.
Yeah, I've had my battles with a number of developers over the years, and I found that the approach I was using was very much SEO. It was almost like SEO is the be all and end all of their priorities, not my priorities, theirs. And when I realized that and changed my approach, it was eye opening how receptive people were to making changes and to actually having things implemented. Because the little nuances with operational work is I find very interesting, of how, you can have a developer, as an example, who pushes back on SEO work, or someone who's more receptive and actually incorporates what you want done into what they're doing, into their workflow, and helps you to get results essentially. With the way that SEOs optimize, would you say it's very much focused on, if you like, hard results or hard tactics rather than those soft skills that are needed? And if that is the case, what can SEOs do to incorporate more soft skills into their communication?
Yeah, so it's a combination. It absolutely is a combination. Yes, you need to have the hard skills. You need to be able to understand how to do good SERP analysis or competitor analysis. You need to understand how you audit a technical setup. You need to have those hard skills, but the soft skills are the way that you get the buy-in. The soft skills, yes, you could have this whole amazing SEO strategy that is actually going to revolutionize the world, but unless you've developed those soft skills to be able to sell that strategy into the people that need to be receptive to it, you're not going to get anywhere. You're just constantly going to be fighting battles with people, and it's draining, it's exhausting, and you just don't get the success that way. So you need to be a good SEO in that you understand your craft and you understand how SEO works and how to get the most out of those opportunities, but you also need to be a good SEO in that you know how to communicate it. And this can scare people because a lot of the time we don't necessarily consider ourselves good communicators, or we might think that no one really listens to us, or they don't understand us when we're explaining things, and it can start to get to you after a while. But you just need to find your groove. You need to find your method of communication, and it's not necessarily bull in the china shop, invading other teams' meetings and declaring SEO the champion. That's one approach, successful for some, not as successful for others. But it might be actually that you're really good at putting together training documents and you write amazing SEO guides, and your way of getting that buy-in and teaching and training and getting people on board with your SEO strategy is by creating this hub of information that sits on your company intranet where people can learn about SEO and they can kind of flourish and grow in their own knowledge and understanding. They come to you and ask questions rather than you going to them and forcing your opinion on them. Or it might be that you actually like to share updates in your company messaging system like Slack, where you talk about things that happened in SEO and the results that you've got, and you bring people along on the journey that way, because your success is their company's success. So shouting about achievements that the SEO team have got can really help to encourage others to see SEO as an exciting and interesting thing. So it's about learning how you communicate things well, rather than trying to force yourself into what you think a good communication is.
Who would you say? I'm curious to know what your response to this would be. Who would you say SEOs have the best communication or relationship with? What team or department?
Oh, it's a very personal thing. I think it depends on the company itself. I said the phrase. It does depend, though. It is dependent upon the company itself, the setup, the architecture of the organization, your sign-off processes. All of those kind of things will have an impact on who is your strongest SEO champion, and which department you have the best relationship with, and the ones that you struggle with. Some companies don't necessarily have SEOs sitting within the marketing team. They might have them sitting within a technical team or a product team, in which case you might find that actually you're getting on really well with your product managers, and that's the closest relationship you have. Or if you sit in the marketing team, it might be that actually you're really aligned with your paid media team, and that's the kind of strongest relationship you have. So it's often based on the circumstances that the SEO finds themselves in. However, I would say that you want to try to build those really strong relationships with some of those core departments, like whoever impacts your brand. So whether that's a brand manager or your whole marketing team, because brand does have a big impact on SEO. You want to be looking at those that control the code. So whether that's your developers or maybe a separate agency. This is something that agency SEOs often struggle with, is that you might not even be just dealing with your client. You could be dealing with your client's development agency and their PR agency and various other people. So you kind of need to work out how to get to your code keepers, the people that can implement the tech changes, and you need to be really close to those that put content on the website. So your copywriters, whether they're in-house or separate to that, you need to be having a good line of communication with them. But just that kind of setup means that it can be really complicated, and you won't necessarily find that all SEOs have a really good relationship with their copywriters, because they might not even know the names of the copywriters because they're in an agency other end of the world. So yeah, it is very dependent on the company setup.
Yeah. So the circumstances dictates, or should I say, influences the what you have in terms of relationship. Does this then mean that there is such a thing as the term industry SEO and company SEO, or business SEO, or SEO within one's business? What I'm trying to get at is, within the industry, SEO is almost seen as one thing, and it's across the board. And businesses or business leaders almost take that and try to incorporate that SEO best practices within their business. Mm-hmm. And they have SEO over their business, as opposed to their business over SEO, and trying to incorporate SEO within their business. I find that this is one of the areas where businesses struggle with, is in they use best practices almost as a Bible, and they forget about the circumstances of their business, and they forget about their business's SEO. What are your thoughts around one's SEO within a business?
Yeah, I think it's a really good point you raise. I always say there's no such thing as best practice in SEO. There's good practice. Best practice would suggest there is one way of doing things that will trump all the other ways of doing things. And that's just not the case with SEO, because, as you've touched on, the industry that you're in could mean that actually you need to really focus on one thing over another. The type of website. So is it an informational website? Is it an e-commerce website? Like, just between those two different types of websites, you're not going to get a best practice for SEO, because they require so very different things. If you are in a charitable organization, for example, then your focus can't necessarily be on whatever's going to drive loads of revenue, because you might not have that to play with. So it might be that actually you're looking at trying to find ways to increase awareness and understanding of whatever cause it is that you're working on. Whereas if it's an e-commerce website in a competitive industry like fashion, for example, then you're very much about getting visibility and getting conversions and getting money as your end goal as an SEO. So, like, the businesses' goals themselves are going to be different. across different types of organizations. So to say that one size of SEO fits all is just not the case. It can't be. And then you have to go and look at actually, well, what's the structure of your company? Do you have resource? Are you a 3-person team that is very much relying on agencies to help support you? And do you have the resource? Do you have the finances to be able to bring in a digital PR agency right now or not? Because if you don't, then probably don't be focusing on digital PR right now. Focus on things that you can afford to focus on. And are you in the gambling industry, for example, and actually you're having to look at some of those more black hat techniques to be able to make an impact? I'm not going to be suggesting black hat techniques to a charity, for example. That would be not a great idea, but you have to kind of be mindful of what your competitors are doing, what your industry is doing, what people are doing in relation to your industry. So, are they going to TikTok more than they are for Google for your particular, I don't know, fashion brand, for example? Do you need to be working really closely with your social media team because there's a lot of overlap between how people are discovering things on social media and how they're discovering them on Google? Or do you find that you're actually in a B2B environment and actually LinkedIn is a good social media channel for you to be learning from and influencing and kind of having that relationship with? Or is Google the point that people use for discovery about potential solutions, or do they already have a solution in mind when they're coming to Google? Like, that is going to differ across every single company, every single website. So yeah, there's best practice cannot exist because it would have to be best practice for each and every single website.
Yep, agreed. Completely agree. For business leaders, what would you wish every business leader knew about SEO?
It's not just meta and backlinks. I think that'd be the key, the number one takeaway. It's not just meta and backlinks. There's more to it. We ask for the expensive tools because they give us a lot of information about things that aren't just meta and backlinks. It comes back to that, the enormity of SEO and how it can impact different teams and how integral and crucial it is to the success of an organization. And I say that with all the humility I can muster because I genuinely believe that SEO is incredibly critical to the success of a website. Mm-hmm. And that's something I think that you can't tell a CEO enough. You can't help them to understand that enough, that SEO really is more than just meta and backlinks. It's impacting so many different facets of their organization.
Yeah. And I find that what business leaders think about SEO is down to what SEOs have almost, if you like, provided to them, what the industry provides to business leaders. I find that the SEO training across the board tends to be focused on SEOs or prospect SEOs. Why do you reckon SEO in education or awareness isn't more so spread to non-SEOs or other departments outside of SEO?
I think that people, those of us responsible for writing SEO articles, myself included, we tend to talk to other SEOs a lot of the time. So we will talk in terms of SEO, we will assume there's a level of knowledge of SEO, or we will start right at the beginning, but with the assumption that we're talking to SEOs. We don't necessarily think, actually, how could I write this in a way that would be really good for a product manager? Or how can I phrase this in a way that really helps a developer? And because of that kind of resource doesn't necessarily exist online that much. And as SEOs, we might be a little bit kind of concerned about sending off an article to our developers that really talks very basically about what HTML is, because that's a bit insulting to them. So I think that there's just not a huge amount of that training online, because we kind of historically have thought about SEO for SEOs, not SEO for developers or SEO for content writers or SEO for product managers. And that kind of resource doesn't necessarily exist in as much volume as SEO for SEO type resources. So it makes it difficult for you to just send the stuff on to those interested stakeholders at your company. But I think that's changing. It is changing. I think people are understanding more and more that we do need to get that buy-in across the board. And a really good way of doing that is by creating instructional information about it. So I know there's a lot of in-house SEOs who will create this big kind of database of training resources for their teams. And So there's a lot of that knowledge that is kind of held within those companies. It's not necessarily being kind of publicized and shared around the internet, which is a shame because it's probably really, really good. But yeah, I think there's definitely this move more towards recognizing that we do need to properly instruct and train and educate other channels and other specialists within these companies. And so hopefully that kind of material will be more available online soon.
And I'll do everything within my power to contribute to making that change across the board. Helen, thank you so much for your time today. You've been amazing, shared some brilliant insights. Where is the best place for people to find you online?
Probably on Twitter. My Twitter handle is @HelenPollett1, or on LinkedIn. Just search for Helen Pollett. There's not a huge amount of us on there, so you'll probably find me there. There's lots of L's and T's in my name though, so good luck with that.
Twitter and LinkedIn. I'll have those both links in the description so people can get in touch should they wish. Helen, thank you so much for your time today. Have a brilliant day, and we'll catch up again another time.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Cheers. Bye now.